Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Hey, you citizens of the world, all of you, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of October 3rd. And this week we saw the President of the United States and his henchman, Hegseth, I can you pronounce it, who's head of the military, now the Department of War. They made a couple speeches, one at the UN and then one before all of the generals from around the world who were flown into Quantico to hear what the president and Hegseth had to say. I'm going to give a quick quote from Politico and then turn it over to our friend Don Rose to see what he has to say. Defense officials in the Pentagon and at bases around the world spent much of Tuesday trying to make sense of the last-minute gathering at the Quantico base in Virginia. Hegseth called out fat generals and separately pushed fitness standards that could limit women in combat roles, while Trump offered its justification for sending the military into American cities. The 90-minute event, which featured military officials who swore an oath to the Constitution attending something more akin to a campaign rally, had the feeling of a Hollywood production. Trump even instructed officials to just have a good time. Aye. What do you got to say, Don?
Well, I found something extremely disturbing. I mean, all of it was crazy, but the most disturbing thing I found in Hegseth's comments were beyond calling these guys fat and making, in effect, sexist remarks, etc., was that he called the rules of engagement stupid, and we want to drop the rules of engagement. Now, the rules of engagement are very wide and very important. They involve things like not murdering prisoners of war. Another rule of engagement is not to use poison gas. What I think we are heading toward here, one of the rules, what we could call a rule of engagement, is the admonition that the military must stay out, must not participate in internal events in the United States. And, you know, Trump has been trying to get people in there. And I think that these guys are preparing us, in fact, for invading our own country. Trump has long wanted the military to be able to shoot protesters and so on and so forth. And I think this is all part of breaking down the barriers that have prevented this. And he and Hegseth have basically told the military, if you don't like what we're saying here, you can resign. They're talking to admirals and generals who know something and have been independent, and they are desperately trying to politicize the military and prepare it for some kind of invasion, not just coming into the city of Chicago and standing around to protect ICE situations, but to actually be prepared to go to war with people who are criticizing that administration. And this is the most horrifying thing, and it has not been played adequately. The idea of dropping the rules of engagement is totally uncivilized. And the generals and admirals know that it is a protective device for them, but Trump and Hegseth do not seem to care. This is what scares the hell out of me right now.
Yeah, so the rules of engagement include poison gas, treatment of prisoners of war. What do you think, and have you found anything? I know it hasn't been very long since this talk, just yesterday, but with the reaction of people in the military, both at a lower level and even these admirals and generals, I couldn't find too much that was reported so far. Have you seen anything? What their reaction?
Only second and third hand statements. A Democratic senator talked to a general, and the generals found it as scary. At least this particular general, second and third hand, found it as scary as I do, and they're not sure what to do about it. Can Trump bust them? It would be a very, very hard thing to do, but they can make life very uncomfortable for them, and they can take them away from higher positions. They may not be able to take a 3-star general and break them to a 2-star or a 1-star, but they're being put on notice, and mucking with the military at this point, politicizing it, telling them to drop the rules of engagement, preparing them to fight what he calls the internal combat. He says our biggest problem is coming from within, the terrorists within.
That's you and me.
That's you and me. If they are able to facilitate this, I mean, we are all in. Somebody said we're not just losing our democracy; we've lost it already.
Don, do you? I know you remember back in the Vietnam War when there was a lot of resistance from within the military. Now, a lot of these young guys were drafted at the time. They weren't just people who signed up. But we even had, during the Democratic Convention in 1968, troops from Fort Hood in Texas refusing to come up here. And we had these off-campus or off-military-based coffee houses, GI Resistance, and there would be performers, and people learned about the war and the Vietnamese people. Do you have any sense how the military, who are now volunteers, I believe, how they might react to these, to the kind of fascist trend that we're seeing?
Well, it just might simply break down into Democrat and Republican if they are politicizing it. And, we may see some resistance from inside. The absence of a draft has certainly made it a less compelling issue for people who feel that they were pulled into a war they didn't want or into a service they didn't want. But we have yet, there is always the possibility of an internal revolt, such as we saw during the Vietnam War. We haven't seen any signs of it yet because this whole matter is just starting to fester.
Let me ask you what your thoughts are on the election in 2026. A lot of people have all along, since Trump came back into office, feared there would not be elections. And he keeps floating the idea of running for a third term, which of course has a response, people saying, well, maybe Obama will come back. What's your sense on whether we'll have elections or not, even though it's not a federal choice, it's the states?
Well, I am not one of those who fears that we won't have an election. And anything is possible in this crazy world with this Supreme Court, but I don't think they will let him get so far as to stop an election. So I think we have a good chance of taking over, a substantial chance of taking over the House, and even a glimmer of possibility for the Senate. I can look at the Senate map and say something is feasible, and it depends at this point on whether Trump's popularity continues, I should say, not begins, but continues to drop. And so it's possible we could take over both houses. We can stop further damage, but he's done so much damage already in these 8 months or so, and we have more than a year ahead. So it is really scary, and I'm not worried about my own backside. At my age, I have little to worry about, but I fear for my grandchildren. One of them just turned 28, the other's about to turn 26. I fear for anybody under 70 today.
Well, I'm over that. So, Don, I want to thank you for coming on, and we'll have you back in a week or two and see what your observations are about the elections, about the Trump troops in our city, and who knows what. It's a dire situation. It's a dire time. It's challenging. I'm so grateful, though, we have in Chicago so many wonderful people who seem to resist. And I want to call out once again that delivery driver who called out ICE and then escaped on his bike with them running after him. It livened up our lives.
You're right.
Okay, brother, we'll see you.